Hey folks, I just finished the new animated series, Batman Caped Crusader, and I had quite a few thoughts on it. To answer the question of the title of this video, is it any good? Yeah, I would say so. But there's definitely more to it than just that I think is worth getting into. This one's gonna be kind of a minimal spoiler review. There's really only one thing that was an image that I saw on Twitter that I don't know the specific, I don't know how it came out. I don't know if it was in the promotional material or not, but largely this review is not going to contain much in the way of spoilers. I'm not even going to be including very many images because one, I'm lazy, and two, this is a spur of the moment decision that I decided to record a video about this. So what kind of Batman show is this? It's very much an origin story for Batman, but after all of the known details of his origin are out, right? So we don't start at the very beginning of his life. You don't immediately open with the deaths of Thomas and Martha Wayne or anything like that. He's an established character, but he's not established within Gotham. So you're basically seeing him developing both his Batman skills and also his kind of general sense of morality. And that's where that kind of vaguely spoilery thing came in, because I saw an image on Twitter that people were quite upset about of Batman holding a gun, which is obviously something that runs counter to most modern interpretations of Batman. And I have to say, what they ended up doing with that and the moment that came as a result of it was fantastic. I was worried about that too, but ultimately I ended up quite satisfied with where that moment turned out. I'm a little bit inebriated at the moment, if you can't tell. But episode to episode, this show basically focuses on one villain from the Batman General Rogues Gallery, and for the most part, I think that works, but there are definitely points in time where it feels like these characters should maybe be having a little bit of a bigger impact than they are, and I don't know, it's just a little bit like disappointing to me to see how short-lived, the Penguin or Scarecrow's impact on the show is. But nonetheless, I think that each individual episode, each individual character is done in, at the very least, an interesting way. I didn't necessarily love or connect with all of them, but they were all interesting. They all felt like adaptations of, mind you, I haven't read enough comics in the Batman general mythos to know what they're adapting necessarily, but they very much felt like fresh takes on the characters that still felt familiar, which I think is a good balance to strike for the most part, with the exception of maybe doing the occasional big swing here or there, completely brand new reinvention. But we haven't seen a whole lot of that. I'm not going to speculate on what they might do in the future. And I guess kind of piggybacking off of that thought of what they're doing in the future, this very much felt like a show that already has 5 seasons, and I don't know if anyone else gets that feeling or even has a clue what I'm talking about when I say that, but I just remember, like, as a kid, there were a bunch of animated superhero shows out, and I could just go and sit down and watch, 5, 6, whatever seasons of it, and that would be that. And it feels like that, I guess, in part because the finale is maybe not as climactic as I would have hoped that it would have been. But also, I think that the animation style just lends itself very well to feeling nostalgic. It's kind of a period setting. It's set in the 1940s. I don't think it's explicitly stated in the show, but it's obviously at least very heavily drawing from that. I always, whenever I see like a period show, I'm never 100% sure if it's actually set during that time or it's meant to be set during modern times, but like everything is like the 1940s, sort of like The Incredibles, where you can't, it's hard at least to pin down exactly what year that's taking place in. But regardless, the animation makes this show feel very familiar to me, and that's both a good and a bad thing. So the good, the fantastic, is the character design in this show is incredibly distinct. Every single character looks unique, looks different, even down to Batman and Bruce Wayne having very similar but distinct features. Like the cowl does a good job of hiding the parts of his face that make him appear the most human, right? As it always does. But the animation or the character design, the style lends itself well to that. So that Batman feels very distinct from Bruce Wayne, while also very noticeably drawing the dichotomy, because this show focuses a lot on Bruce Wayne, and I think it really enhances the Batman moments, even if perhaps there aren't as many as there should be. But that's a tangent. Like I said, slightly drunk, doing the spur of the moment. On the other side of things, slightly more negative, the actual animation itself, the actual motion is a bit questionable to me. On the one hand, and this is my personal nostalgia brain speaking, I do like it. I like the way that motion works in this show. It reminds me very much of some of the like classic old Marvel cartoons, like I don't know if it's called the Marvel Superheroes, but you know, the one that had the theme song, the Marvel Superheroes have arrived, where there are just very stilted motions that don't really convince you, but nonetheless they feel very much like they're being taken out of a comic book, like you're just like moving a character across the screen. There were moments in the show that felt like that. I personally liked it, but I don't know if it was an intentional artistic decision or rather a limitation of whether it be budget or time, or I doubt it, but like effort, you know? So that's something where I've seen people call the animation very bad. I see where they're coming from. I see the point that they're making. I didn't necessarily feel that way, but yeah, no, I get it. And that's something worth, if you're really into super fluid animation in superhero shows, action that is almost across the board perfect and as realistic as you can get with a two-dimensional art style, you probably want to go for something like X-Men 97. That's a lot stronger in that regard. Arguably Invincible, but obviously when we're talking about animation quality, X-Men 97 and Invincible are in completely different leagues. But yeah, decent show so far. I am interested in season 2. I hope that it'll be a little bit more climactic and perhaps a bit more focused, but great art style, arguably good animation, some interesting stories, maybe not as much focus on Batman as I would have liked. However, a lot of focus on Bruce Wayne, which is something that I feel like in animated and visual in general Batman media is perhaps a little bit lacking. So that stuff is all good. Interesting villains, well-designed villains, and, you know, some pretty fresh but familiar takes. That's what I said earlier. I recommend it. It's on Amazon if that's something that you are comfortable paying for a subscription to, which, you know, I understand if you wouldn't be. But yeah, at the moment, I would probably give it about a 7 or so out of 10, maybe 6.5, in that general ballpark. Pretty good. Thanks for listening to this rambling review of a show that a surprisingly low number of people are talking about. If you want more substantive stuff in the future, you should definitely, you know, subscribe to the channel, but I appreciate nonetheless you sticking around. So, God, I'm really freaking bad at outros.